Yesterday's Wargaming Tactica, we asked the question, when does the game start? Turn one, deployment, list building, and we were exploring some different deployment options. Push that up to the Wargaming Tactics playlist here. In today's vlog, I want to offer a counter to that. I want to offer some Tactica to utilize. Now, I'm going to use BattleTech as a gaming system to illustrate this concept, but this is a concept. You're going to find this Tactica available in any wargaming system that you play. So the goal is to look at your rule set, to look at the units that you have available, and match up this principle. This is known as deployment lockdown. What you're going to do is get the fastest unit possible that you have available. Maybe it flies, maybe it teleports, maybe it burrows underground, maybe it uses magic, but essentially, as best as possible, it can go from one point on the gaming table to the far side in one single turn, ideally. Second criteria is it's got to be cheap. Low power points, squadron points, battle value, whatever currency that you use to build your list, it has to be very, very inexpensive. And you want to have at least three of them, three groupings of them, because one, your opponent's going to ignore with what we're doing. Two, I don't know. Three, I have to deal with it. So within that, what fits that criteria? Now, based on your rule set, if you get something that also has some attack ability, that's pretty good. If you get something that has a little bit of survivability, maybe because it moves fast or it has a special rule, that's also great. But the primary thing is it's got to move fast and it has to be really, really cheap because it's expendable. I don't want to buy an expensive unit and lose it, and then we're out of those points. It's weak in the other part of my army. Now, the tactics for this, turn one, when it is your turn, you're going to take this unit, the three of them, and three separate units would be best, and fly, teleport, magic, whatever, right into the heart of your opponent's deployment zone. And you're going to find a place where you can hide. You're not going to attack. You're basically going to try and survive as long as you can. I say as long as you can because you're going to get destroyed. Fritz, what's the point of getting destroyed? The point is to lock down your opponent. If I take these three fast-moving units and I zip them across the battlefield and we're in your deployment zone and I hide them behind a building or some ruins, obviously I'm not going to be out in the open. If I fly across turn one, I'm out in the open. Your entire army, 2,000 points, 5K points, is going to blast on these three units. Don't even bother rolling the dice. I'll just take them off the table. That is not using it correctly. Your job is to hide and survive in your opponent's deployment zone as long as you can. What you're looking to do, deployment lockdown, is draw off a few units. So as your turn one, as your opponent is moving out, right? As they're trying to move out, if suddenly these small units appear there, their deployment is locked down in that, well, I got to deal with these things because otherwise they're going to attack the flank or they're going to hit my back line where I've got my missile launchers and my artillery. So maybe I should send off some infantry. Maybe I should send out some tanks. Maybe I should send out some light units. You're going to try and get your opponent to waste and siphon off units that should be moving out elsewhere to deal with these three units. And eventually they're going to destroy them. But if I can last till turn 3, 4, or 5, that's earned its value back. But I don't want to spend a lot of points because they are expendable. Now, let's look at BattleTech just as a framework. And if you're familiar with BattleTech, this will illustrate the concept. If you're not, it's a fantastic game. And I'm going to explain some of the rules briefly. BattleTech has a variety of different units. The primary unit in BattleTech are battle mechs, these giant war robots. But the technology level is also there in that you have artillery, air units, you've got infantry, you've got tanks, you've got battle armor, really, really combined arms. There is a unit called the Warrior. This is a fast-moving, very, very light attack helicopter. I guess the equivalent would be sort of be like an Apache helicopter. Very, very light, very, very fast. It's got some missiles. It's got an autocannon, a little bit of damage, not much. But the speed of it is insane. It can make it from one side to the other. BattleTech also has elevation. The higher up you move, it's not only shooting straight, but then you have to shoot up straight in the air, you might be out of range. So taking 3 warriors and battle value, units in BattleTech have a battle value, which is their currency to purchase and fit in the game. Very, very, very low battle value. You can fit those in no problem. They can also fulfill a variety of other Tactica, and I've pushed up Warrior Tactica to the BattleTech playlist, but that is a battle for another time. I buy 3 warriors. Deployment, I put 1 in my deployment zone, 1 in the center, 1 on the far left side, 1 on the far right side. 3 units. If I put them all on the right side and move up, then they're all kind of grouped together, and my opponent has a central point to deal with them. I want to spread them out. My turn, I zip them across as fast as I can. I wind up in your deployment zone. I hide behind terrain. I hide in between buildings if it's city fight, city tech. I zip around back and forth. Now, they have missiles and they have an autocannon. They don't do a ton of damage. I'm going to fire off on some targets as I can, but I put survivability. I put zipping around first as the primary thing that I'm looking for. If I can pull off some mechs where my opponent's going to force them to deal with the warriors, if they can send out some hovercraft, they can send out some of their own aircraft to try and face me down. Survivability is key. Just moving, zipping back and forth. For a couple of hundred battle value, if I tie up 2, 3, or 4 times battle value of my opponent's forces for 2, 3, or 4 turns, that is massive. That's an example of deployment lockdown. So now, in your rules, in your Wargaming set, in your miniatures, what do you have that is fast, that or again, can teleport in, suddenly appear? Very, very low battle value, very, very low power points, very, very low squadron points, whatever it's going to be. And how can you take 3 of them so 1 appears on each point in your opponent's deployment zone, goes to ground, takes cover, causes as much trouble as possible?